Good evening. This is Enid Lapellis. Today is September 14th, 2020, and the time is 8 p.m. This is a regular meeting of the Monroe Town Council. As is customary, before we start the meeting, would you all please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all. Please allow me to confirm the presence of those town council members and any other staff or anticipated participants are present and are able to hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Dee Dee Martin.
Dee Dee Martin here.
Jennifer Aguilar.
Jennifer Aguilar here.
Jason Maurer.
Jason Maurer here.
Terry Rooney.
Terry Rooney here.
Jonathan Formicella.
Jonathan Formicella here.
Tony Scott.
Tony Scott here.
Sean O'Rourke.
Sean O'Rourke here.
Kevin Reed.
Kevin Reed here.
And Enid Lapellis here. Staff and other anticipated participants, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. First Selectman Ken Kellogg.
Ken Kellogg here.
Town Attorney Frank Lieto. He's
Chair,
not present.
Attorney Lieto said he may be late if he's able to attend. So
Okay, no problem.
Shows up.
Town engineer. Okay, let me know if he does. Town engineer Scott Schatzline.
Scott Schatzline here.
Interim Human Resources Director Mike Brown. Is that you, Mike? Yeah. Could you hear him?
Mike, your audio, you seem to be muted, Mike.
We can see the mouth move, but.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mike Brown here.
Interim Human. Thank you. WMNR Station Manager Kurt Anderson.
Kurt Anderson's present.
Okay, thank you. I hereby declare a quorum and call this meeting to order. A copy of the agenda and any related materials have been posted to and can be found on the Town of Monroe's website, www.monroect.org, for public inspection. This public meeting is being conducted remotely in compliance with Section 1 of Governor Lamont's Executive Order Number 7B, dated March 14, 2020, using GoToMeeting electronic conferences technology. Using this technology, the public shall participate in real time in this meeting via computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone, using the access information set forth on the meeting agenda. Please be advised that each meeting has unique participation information, so please be sure that you have accessed the correct meeting. Notice is hereby given that only 250 participants may access this remote electronic public meeting at any one time. Access to this meeting using this technology is granted solely by the technology provider on first access basis and is not controlled by the Town of Monroe. While it is anticipated that we will not exceed this participant limit for this meeting, should it appear that we are approaching said limit, so that any member of the public is denied access to the meeting, the chairman retains the right to adjourn and continue the meeting at a later date using technology appropriate to ensure all members of the public may participate. Please take notice of the following regarding this remote electronic public meeting. 1, that this meeting is being conducted in real time. 2, that this meeting is open to the public. 3, that any member of the public may listen or view to this meeting anonymously. 4, that this meeting is being recorded, and while we ask that you mute your microphones unless recognized to speak, that anything you say, do, or is displayed on your screen may become part of the recording. 5, that the recording shall be posted to the town's website within 7 days. 6, that the recording shall be made available to the public within a reasonable time in town hall or upon written request. As set forth on the agenda, this meeting will feature and permit public participation. Any written comments from the public regarding any business which would otherwise be germane to public participation and received between the date the agenda was posted through 1 hour before the start of the meeting will be read into the record during the public participation portion of this meeting. Ground rules to ensure the meeting runs smoothly, the comments are audible, and an accurate record is maintained are as follows. This meeting shall follow standard parliamentary procedure. However, I ask all our participants to follow these special rules in addition. Please mute your microphone so as to reduce background noise at all times you are not speaking. Prior to speaking on each occasion, you must clearly state your name for the record. The use of chat features is prohibited and will not be considered during the meeting at any time. All members will have an opportunity to speak on agenda items. However, please hold your comments until you are recognized. Once discussion is complete or a vote has been compelled by parliamentary procedure, the chair will call for a roll call vote on the motion. It was probably completed, but that's not what it says in my sheet. Before we continue, I understand that Council Member Kevin Reed wishes to make a motion regarding suspension of the rules of procedure. Mr. Reed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you would oblige, I move that pursuant to Article 7 of our Rules of Procedure, the Town Council suspend Rule 13, which requires all matters relating to the general government of the town and all agreements to which the town is a party be referred to LNA. As due to the coronavirus, our subcommittees, including LNA, have not met to consider the matters which appear on this evening's agenda, which otherwise would have been referred and voted on by LNA as a condition precedent to appearing before the full body.
Thank you.
Jason Maurer,
Do I hear a second? Okay, any discussion? Then I'm going to call for a roll call vote. Dee Dee Martin? Dee Dee, for a roll call vote? Thank you. Jen Aguilar?
Jen Aguilar, aye.
Jason Maurer?
Jason Maurer, aye.
Terry Rooney?
Terry Rooney, aye.
Jonathan Formicella?
Jonathan Formicella, aye.
Tony Scott?
Tony Scott, aye.
Sean O'Rourke?
Sean O'Rourke, aye.
Kevin Reed?
Kevin Reed, aye.
And myself, Enid Lapellis, aye. The motion passes 9-0. Consent calendar. Are there any objections to me passing the consent calendar as presented? Okay. I hereby pass the consent calendar as presented. I hereby ask that communications items A through L be referenced in the minutes of the meeting. Public participation. At this time, I'll ask Mr. Kellogg to assist me in the facilitating the next item on the agenda, public participation. So, Mr. Kellogg, anybody present?
I'd be happy to assist in that regard, Madam Chair. At this time, if there's anyone in the public who wishes to speak during public participation, please remember to unmute your mic and state your name so that I can prepare a list for the chair.
Hi, Nick Kapoor. I'd like to speak.
Okay. I've
Okay.
got that. Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to speak during public participation?
So, Mr. Kapoor,
Yep. Go ahead.
you can speak.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Good to see all of you. Nicholas Kapoor, 109 Meadows End Road. I just wanted to speak tonight about the pay plan that you're going to be discussing. I see the full-time pay plan is up for discussion this evening. I don't know if there's been any discussion on the part-time pay plan. About 3.5 years ago, I can't believe it's been that long, when we discussed the part-time pay plan, I believe the part-time pay plan and the full-time non-union pay plan were adopted relatively around the same time, the revisions, a couple months. I know we did the full-time first and then we moved to the part-time because the part-time was new. But I thought I remembered that the spirit of doing those things close together was that they were going to be reviewed in parallel. 3.5 years ago, we pulled the data from CCM, Kathy Lombardi and I pulled the data along with various people to look at our part-time wages relative to municipalities that were socioeconomically similar to ours and to those that were in our DERG. And I think we took a couple outliers out, and actually the towns that we took out have been rejiggered into different DERGs in the new DERG update. So I just want to say I hope the part-time pay plan also gets reviewed Although I'm happy to see full-time salaries being increased into ranges that are similar to towns like ours, that we still have some of the lowest part-time wages, I think, in the region and compared to towns similar to us. And I think that this review should take place quite quickly, because I think that the town council should have a new part-time pay plan with ranges that are similar to other towns ready for your budget session, so that you can have the new part-time pay plan next to your budget books when you're going through those salaries. I think that's going to be really important. I know we're going to have a tremendous budget season coming up on both the board side and on the town side. But I think that if we're going to do the full-time people, that we need to reevaluate the part-time as well. And I hope that can be looked at in the very near future. And thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. Thank you, Enid.
Thank you, Mr. Kapoor. For action items, Terry Rooney would like to report about EMS. So, Mr. Rooney?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to update really quick with the EMS building project. I did get a call from the construction manager at risk that we hired from Burlington Construction, Justin. He has completed the plans, or enough that we could sit down with the architect Jakunski and Humes, and we'll be having a meeting to discuss the final plan with corresponding costs. It's going to be a long one as we have a lot to discuss. However, we should have a cost estimate soon. And that is all, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then Mr. Ken Kellogg, First Selectman's update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as has become customary, I'll start out with a COVID update. There have been relatively low numbers ongoing in Monroe, although we have had a couple of increases a couple weeks ago. So if you go back the last 4 weeks, we range anywhere from no cases to as high as 7 cases in 1 week. Last week we had 2 cases. So it's it's been a running average around 3.5 cases a week in the past month. So with these relatively low numbers, it's not alarming, but we are seeing increased cases like the rest of the state. They're not tremendous, but there are increases occurring, and we continue to monitor that. As we know, as I'm sure you all know, we've had a case in our school community as well. Our health director worked closely with the superintendent, and we involved the state health department as necessary to make sure that we all understood, the scenario, and we're taking the appropriate actions. As I said, our metrics are fairly good throughout the state. The metrics remain in what they categorize as low risk, and that is true for all individual counties in the state as well, including Fairfield County. But as I said, there have been slight increases statewide in the test positivity percentage. The governor advised today that it was around 1.2% was the latest number, which it has not been over 1% in a while. However, it is relative to other states still extremely low. They've stated that some of that could be due to increased testing, such as at our colleges, but there's also some increased community transmission occurring as well. Statewide, that is being traced back to smaller gatherings, particularly with what they've categorized as people having small gatherings among friends and other non-household family members, and asking that people remember that you use the precautions of social distancing and face coverings when you're in close proximity with non-household members. And again, as I reported in the past, the shift towards increased positive cases in the younger age groups of 19 to 30 continues to be observed. The governor's public health and civil preparedness emergency declarations have been extended 5 months to February 9th. And most of the executive orders have been extended until November 9th. That is what we've been told will be somewhat of a milestone date upon which they will advise what their further evaluation will be for the various orders that are out there. Today, there was an announcement by the governor that an executive order will come out this week, if it has not come out already this evening, which will take effect sometime this week, which will introduce fines for violations of certain orders, specifically a $100 fine for violating the mask order, a $500 fine for organizing an event that is over the gathering limit, and a $250 fine for attending an event over the gathering limit. These fines will be enforceable locally through police, health director, and other municipal officials that have been given that authority. And again, this was new information that we just received this evening, and didn't really, we've been hearing other communities ask for things, tools like this, and this is the first we've had indication that they're going to put something into effect. The state is also going to be modifying the travel advisory so that in addition to the 14-day quarantine when coming from an impacted state, there will be a provision to allow for a negative test result. We don't have a lot of specifics on the logistics of that yet, but that I assume will be forthcoming, and the state travel form will be required as well. Switching back to locally, again, we continue with appointments at Town Hall through the website at monroect.org/appointments. To date, we've had around 400 appointments scheduled through that system, so it's been very successful. And the other thing I wanted to announce is that our public meetings have been almost exclusively limited to remote access to be consistent with the gathering rules. That said, we're continuing to identify opportunities to stay consistent with those guidelines, but allow smaller meetings to proceed in person, having consistent with the reopening of the state. So I will be sending out information, or my office will be sending out information tomorrow, but effective immediately, we will be expanding opportunities to conduct limited in-person meetings for certain boards, commissions, and committees where the meeting has an anticipated total attendance of less than 25 people. This will be in addition to allowing small meetings to be held outside while the weather remains warm enough. We've done a few of those in a pilot, and it's worked fine. And then lastly, we will be adding a hybrid capability for larger meetings whereby certain groups such as this town council and planning and zoning will have the ability to attend in person while the public would continue to participate remotely. And to do that, we will be making a further upgrade on some of the technology in the council chambers. So that is in process as we speak. So that's it on COVID. The next update I wanted to provide is relative to concerns that have been expressed regarding the Board of Education investigation. Certain constituents have expressed to me their concerns regarding some of the recent developments on the Board of Ed's investigation regarding the superintendent of schools and the financial oversight. I want to be clear that I am very respectful of the exclusive jurisdiction of the Board of Education over their personnel matters. I do, however, feel that there are certain aspects that require some clarification, especially as it relates to taxpayer funds. I have respectfully requested that Board of Ed Chairman Donna Lane attend this Thursday's Board of Finance meeting so that these questions can be addressed. I'm very grateful that Chairman Lane has confirmed her attendance at the meeting, and Board of Finance Chairman Mike Manjos has advised me that he shares some of the same concerns, and he is very eager to facilitate the discussion so that further clarity can be brought to this matter. The next update is on a public information session that I've scheduled on the proposed cell tower. As you're aware, there is a proposal for this new tower kind of in the woods behind the former Chalk Hill School. The Planning and Zoning Commission has returned a favorable report pursuant to this council's referral under section 8-24 of the statutes. The matter is still subject to a further approval from this council for a ground lease, as well as final approval from P&Z for a future site plan application that would have to be submitted. But in advance of those further actions, I have asked the company to provide a public information session, which I've always said we would do, particularly for those people in the neighbors in the area, so that they have advance information. So this has been tentatively scheduled for Wednesday, September 30th, and we will send out further announcements on that. An update on the PURA investigation regarding Tropical Storm Isaias. PURA has granted the town's intervener status into that matter, as I had reported last time that we were seeking. So our motion's been accepted. I have established a web page, monroect.org/PURA, where residents, property owners, business owners can all submit comments that will be included in our submission to PURA. To date, we have received over 70 comments. So we encourage people to continue to send in comments. And lastly, I'll just want to run through a listing of recent and upcoming ribbon cuttings in local businesses. So late last month, we had a ribbon cutting at Sip and Energy for a new 60,000 gallon propane terminal at their location on Main Street. This past Saturday, we welcomed All That Canine, a dog training company at 849 Main Street. And we have 3 more currently scheduled. On September 17th, a ribbon cutting for A Wellness Life, which is a personal training, wellness, nutrition venture that is going to be opening at Tollgate Plaza. On 9/26, Little Steps Daycare will be officially doing their grand opening at 575 Main Street. And October 14th, we have a ribbon cutting scheduled for Better Homes and Gardens real estate offices at 588 Monroe Turnpike. And that is my update for this evening, Madam Chair.
Thank you. There is no unfinished business.
Madam
this
Chair,
evening.
Madam Chair,
Yes. Yes,
may I ask
Ms.
a question?
Mrs. Aguilar.
May-
Yep. Yes, Ms. Aguilar.
May I ask a question of the First Selectman?
Yes.
I actually have 3 questions, Mr. Kellogg.
Sure.
Meetings. So town council will not be meeting in person. We're the second step of getting those meetings together.
So I feel that groups such as town council, it would be extremely difficult to presume that you would always have a meeting where the total attendance would be under 25.
Really?
And for that, well, you know, I wish I could say it'll always be over 25, but I think
You probably could.
I think that for those meetings, the hybrid model would probably be the safest, because the concern I would always have is that if more than 25 people were to show up, I think we would be obligated to adjourn the meeting until a future date and time where the entire public could participate. And if we did not have that remote access available, that would be a concern. So again, I'm trying to limit those to, you know, there's some boards and commissions that unless they have something highly unusual on their agenda, it is very unlikely to get anywhere close to the 25 limit. And so for those smaller boards and commissions and committees, such as, you know, some of your subcommittees here, it would be appropriate to you know, want to move those forward.
So the Board of Ed has been meeting now two times. Their last 2 meetings have been in person, and they have their administrators. So they must not be meeting even with their 9-person board and their administrators in that meeting. I mean, they get a lot more people at their meetings than we do. I just want to put it on the record that, you know, I disagree with that, because I think we could have meetings, because I see the Board of Ed doing it. But that's fine.
They might be using a hybrid model, but it would be disingenuous to.
I watch the meetings. They're all, the whole board is there, and they have their administrators speaking at the meeting. So I'm not sure how they're doing it.
Well, again, for council, it would certainly be appropriate to have, or P&Z to have staff there in addition to those members. But again, it's when the public cannot attend is where we have to make sure that we're having that remote option if the public can't join in.
Okay. My next question, have you given any thought to Halloween? I've just been reading some articles, and I think I read today one city in Connecticut has said that they're not gonna they're going to encourage people not to go trick-or-treating. So I just wanted to throw it out there. I know both of these questions are very early, so I know you're probably not thinking about it, but I'm putting a bug in your ear.
We'll add that to the list, Jen. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I know you have nothing else to do. And my third one is, have you given any thought to how do you know about the polls? Do we anticipate having any shortages of poll workers? And if so, is there a way that, I know I would be willing to donate my time to work at a poll. Is that possible? I know we can't get paid to do it, but could we, if willing or wanted to, work at a poll? I know that's another national news thing that poll workers, because of their age, there's a shortage.
Right, thanks. So I have not been advised by the Registrar of Voters of any immediate concerns relative to poll workers. But, you know, we would certainly continue to have those conversations. As far as I know, they have not utilized volunteers as poll workers in the past. I know that you're correct that council members can't receive payment. I know that there's also, it would not apply this year, but certainly when there's a local municipal election year, that also becomes an issue for people who are on the ballot or family members on the ballot. It would not be obviously an issue this year, though. I will certainly ask the Registrar of Voters if they have any provisions for that. I know that we have had some volunteers express interest in the absentee ballot process, and I believe our town clerk has been utilizing that where possible. But again, you know, we can follow up on that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam
Okay,
Chair?
so we're going on. Oh, yes, go ahead. Another question.
Thank you,
Go
Madam
ahead.
Chair.
I think-
Thank you for your update, Mr. First Selectman. I had a couple of quick follow-ups to your update. One being, obviously, I will attempt to attend the Board of Finance meeting virtually and be able to hear it on my own. But if possible, especially since we don't have our subcommittees meeting quite yet, if you could, as part of your selectmen's update in the next town council meeting, just include as part of your update, kind of a summation of that discussion regarding the Board of Education investigation. Perfect.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
The next one is for meetings that we are planning on going to in person. Are we going to make some of the larger areas available for those meetings? I know a lot of them would have met in rooms like 104, which are smaller, but are we going to be able to make things like the council chambers or things like that available for those meetings?
Yeah, that's precisely what we're going to probably do. So there'll be some meetings where, for example, if you're going to do a hybrid meeting and there's only going to be, you know, a really small number of people that need to be physically present, 204 might accommodate that. But in most cases, so for example, you know, that we're talking about, council chambers will likely be the location that we would make available. And I can tell you that plexiglass partitions are already in place. We would utilize, you know, we would identify appropriate seating locations in the audience that maintain the 6 foot, you know, separations. And again, as I said, we're working to, as you know, the one issue with the council chambers is that the video does not have the ability to stream, and we are going to be addressing that. And as soon as that is up and running, we would be able to run a hybrid meeting there.
Fantastic.
But until there, we would be able to run an in-person where the public would be allowed to attend.
Right.
For the small.
And the last one, what was the date of the last ribbon cutting you mentioned, the Better Home and Gardens Realty?
It's in October, I believe. Hold on.
14th.
October 14th, Mr. O'Rourke is saying.
Thank you.
And do you know what time those 3 ribbon cuttings are?
I could probably get my hands on that in a minute. If you just give me, let's see, a Wellness Life is at 3 p.m. Little Steps Daycare is at noon, and Better Homes is at 4 p.m.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I can go on to new business now. Resolution 20-83 to consider and act upon a resolution regarding Housatonic Valley Rail Trail, Section 2 and Section 3 Project Professional Services Agreement. That's item A. Will Mr. O'Rourke please introduce the motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that resolution be hereby adopted. Resolution number 20-83, resolved that Kenneth M. Kellogg, First Selectman of the Town of Monroe, is authorized to execute and deliver on behalf of the Town of Monroe the professional services agreement and any associated documents by and between the Town of Monroe, Stantec Consulting Services, Inc., regarding Housatonic Rail Trail Section 2 and 3 projects.
Do I hear a second for this motion?
Second. Jonathan Formicella,
Okay,
second.
thank you. Thank you. Mr. Kellogg, would you please start the discussion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you're all very familiar with this project for this really large, over $1.5 million, actually more like $1.7 million total trail project. As you know, we have funding through LOTSIP for the construction. We had gotten most of the design costs covered through a separate grant through DEEP. And we are at the process now where we want to award the contract for the design and certain inspection services so we can move on to the next phase of this. So Mr. Schatzline is on the call here certainly and can give you some more details if necessary. But basically through a QBS and RFP process, we've selected Stantec Consulting Services for this. Again, it's design engineering and some inspection services. And in addition, Mr. Alito has provided his letter of opinion as well, which is in your packet. So again, if you have any questions for me or Mr. Schatzline, we're happy to entertain this. And this bid did come, I believe it was the lowest bid, and it also actually I think is slightly under what we had originally projected. So it's all good news in that regard.
Okay. Discussion, questions of Mr. Kellogg? Discussion from the council? So hearing none, I'm going to call for a roll call vote on the resolution. Dee Dee Martin? Dee Dee, you there? Maybe she's on mute. Dee Dee?
Dee Dee Martin, aye.
Jennifer Aguilar?
Jennifer Aguilar, aye.
Jason Mauer?
Jason Mauer, aye.
Terry Rooney?
Terry Rooney, aye.
Jonathan Formicella?
Jonathan Formicella, aye.
Tony Scott?
Tony Scott, aye.
Sean O'Rourke?
Sean O'Rourke, aye.
Kevin Reed?
Kevin Reed, aye.
And Enid Lapellis, aye. So this motion passes 9-0. Going on to item B, resolution 20-84, to consider and act upon a resolution regarding FCC minor modification of a licensed facility for FM translator application. I'll ask Mr. O'Rourke to please introduce the motion.
I move that the resolution be hereby adopted. Resolution number 20-84, resolved that Kenneth M. Kellogg, First Selectman of the Town of Monroe, is authorized to execute and deliver on behalf of the Town Council of Monroe the FCC minor modification of a licensed facility for FM translator application and any associated documents regarding FM translator W209CJ.
Thank you. Do I hear a second for this motion?
Jonathan Formicella, second.
Thank you. Mr. Kellogg, discussion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So WMNR, as you know, operates, there's actually several other stations that are translator stations, and this is one of them that basically rebroadcasts the MNR signal. This is a station in New York that Mr. Anderson had advised me lost power, and it is a permanent issue there. So he has endeavored to find an alternate location, which he has done, and is working to go through that process. This would ultimately come back to the council for a lease, a ground lease, or actually, well, the reverse of that would be us seeking a ground lease for a tower. But in the process of doing that, we need to get FCC approval for the relocation of station W209CJ. So this is simply as the council is the license holder. This is your authorizing me to submit the application and all the documents that you have in your packet relative to that FCC requirement. You have Attorney Leto's opinion letter in this, as well as the opinion email from WMNR's special counsel for FCC matters. And Mr. Anderson is online should you have any further questions, especially if they're really technical on the station. I'll let him handle those.
Okay, any questions of the council or discussion? Hearing none, asking for a roll call vote on the resolution. Dee Dee Martin,
Dee Martin, aye.
Jen Aguilar,
Jen Aguilar, aye.
Jason Mauer,
Jason Mauer, aye.
Terry Rooney,
Jerry Rooney, aye.
Jonathan Formicella,
Jonathan Formicella, aye.
Tony Scott,
Tony Scott, aye.
Sean O'Rourke,
Sean O'Rourke, aye.
Kevin Reed,
Kevin Reed, aye.
Enid Lapellis, aye. The motion passes 9-0. Going on to item C, Resolution 20-85, to consider and act upon a resolution regarding tie and bond agreement for the engineering services MS4 compliance for the fiscal year 2020-2021. I'll ask Mr. O'Rourke to please introduce the motion.
I move that the resolution be hereby adopted. Resolution number 20-85, resolved that Kenneth M. Kellogg, first selectman of the town of Monroe, is authorized to execute and deliver on the behalf of the town of Monroe the engineering services outfall screening services agreement for year 2020 to 2021 and any associated documents by and between TIG and bond for services to support MS4 compliance.
Thank you. Do I hear a second for this motion?
Jonathan Formicella, second.
Okay, Mr. Kellogg, discussion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is probably very familiar to you. This agreement is essentially identical to the one that was approved approximately a year ago for last fiscal year. So this is all the services in regards to the annual report and the outflow monitoring that's required under the state's MS4 permit process. There's really not much more to articulate than that. It is funded through the ongoing MS4 appropriation, which has sufficient funds in it to cover this. And again, Mr. Schatzline is on the call if there's any questions or further clarification you need on this.
Thank you. Any discussion, council members? So I'm calling for a roll call vote on the resolution. Dee Dee Martin,
Dee Martin, aye.
Jennifer Aguilar,
Jennifer Aguilar, aye.
Jason Mauer,
Jason Mauer, aye.
Terry Rooney,
Terry Rooney, aye.
Jonathan Formicella,
Jonathan Formicella, aye.
Tony Scott,
Tony Scott, aye.
Sean O'Rourke,
Sean O'Rourke, aye.
Kevin Reed,
Kevin Reed, aye.
And Enid Lapellis, aye. So this motion passes 9-0. Item D, Resolution 20-86, to consider and act upon a resolution regarding emergency management job descriptions. I'll ask Mr. O'Rourke to please introduce the motion.
I move that the resolution be hereby adopted. Resolution number 20-86. Resolved that the town council hereby approves the following job descriptions. 1, emergency management director. 2, deputy emergency management director. 3, deputy emergency management director, CERT coordinator.
Okay, do I hear a second for this motion?
Jonathan Formicella, second.
Okay, discussion, Mr. Kellogg?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as I outlined in my cover memo, you're obviously all very aware that we have an emergency management department. The department also operates the volunteer CERT team. I want to be clear, these roles are longstanding and they're extremely well understood and well performed by the individuals. The roles and responsibilities are also, or tasks, I should say, are very clearly indicated in our emergency operations plan as well. But from a from an HR perspective, we identified that there were no formal job descriptions within HR for these positions. So that was the reason why these are before you now. We have, in addition to the standard deputy position, also added the role of someone who would focus on the CERT team and CERT coordination as well. And Mr. Brown is on the line as well if you have any additional questions that either of us can answer.
Thank you. So discussion, questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes,
Jen
Ms.
Aguilar, may I ask a question? It's actually not a question. I love these things. I love when they're clear like this. So these are great. Thank you. But I found a couple typos. On the deputy EMD, under this is actually the deputy and the CERT. Under educational skills and experience, the 7th bullet does not need a colon after it. I think it was probably a copy and paste from the EMD, because after the EMD there's a colon and then another qualification, successful experience in delivering presentation.
Got it.
Okay, thank you.
And also the third on the deputy EMD in the the bottom, the physical, what is it? The physical demands.
Mm-hmm.
On the third line after before the word ability needs a space. That's all.
Which one?
Okay.
Should have been an English.
Chair?
Where's this?
On
Which one?
On the deputy EMD.
Yeah.
Under physical demands.
Mm-hmm.
Third line down.
Mm-hmm.
To the right after terrain period.
I was looking at the wrong ability. I was looking at the sentence.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Sentence before it.
Fine. I mean, unless this council has any objections, I'd consider those Scrivener errors. That could be simply.
Well, Madam Chair, I move to amend the original resolution to include as amended by the first selectman in accordance with the suggestions of this meeting.
Okay, thank you. We have a vote. So first we'll vote on the.
First, we need a second on the motion to amend.
I second that. That, Jason.
Okay, so Jen Aguilar seconds it. So discussion, have we had enough discussion or anybody else?
No, these are great. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Okay.
And Mr. Kellogg.
So I believe we can vote on the amended item.
You first need to vote on the amendment to the motion.
Okay, so I'm doing roll call vote for an amendment to the motion. Dee Dee Martin?
Dee Dee Martin, aye.
Jen Aguilar?
Jen Aguilar, aye.
Jason Mauer.
Jason Mauer, aye.
Okay. Terry Rooney.
Terry Rooney, aye. Madam Chair, at this time, I'll be leaving the meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your EMS report. Jonathan Formicella.
Jonathan Formicella, aye.
Tony Scott.
Tony Scott, aye.
Kevin Reed.
Kevin Reed, aye.
Enid Lapellis, aye. So this
Sean
passes
O'Rourke.
9 to...
Sean
I missed...
O'Rourke, aye.
Sorry, Sean. So this passes 9-0. Now we want to vote on the agenda, the item as presented, the amended item as presented, correct?
Now you're voting.
Item as amended.
Yeah, that's what I said, the item as amended. So, Dee Dee Martin,
Dee Dee Martin, aye.
Jen Aguilar,
Jen Aguilar, aye.
Jason Mauer,
Jason Mauer, aye.
Jonathan Formicella,
Jonathan Formicella, aye.
Tony Scott,
Tony Scott, aye.
Sean O'Rourke,
Sean O'Rourke, aye.
and Kevin Reed,
Kevin Reed, aye.
and Enid Lapellis, aye. So this now passes 9-0. Going on
Madam
to
Chair,
item,
8-0.
because Terry's not there. Thank you very much. Item E, Resolution 20-87, to consider and act upon a resolution regarding the pay plan for the full-time unaffiliated employees in the classified services. Mr. O'Rourke, a motion, please.
I move that the resolution be hereby adopted. Resolution number 20-87, resolved that pursuant to the Town Charter, Chapter 10, Section 3, the pay plan for full-time unaffiliated employees in the classified service is hereby amended as presented by the First Selectman.
Okay, do I have a second for this motion?
Jonathan Formicella, second.
Okay, discussion, Mr. Kellogg?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, as you know from my cover memo and the memo which covers this in more detail from Mr. Brown, I've asked that and this actually to address the comments during public participation as well. I've asked that all of the pay plans be reviewed and evaluated. The first of which that has been completed is for the full-time unaffiliated employees. So I want to thank Mr. Brown for all his work in regards to this. He did a significant amount of research and we had a lot of discussions on this. What I would just wanted to highlight in my memo, I want to be very clear, there are absolutely zero salary adjustments contained in this proposal. This is simply the pay plan in this regard is simply just resetting the salary ranges for these positions so that they are current. And there are no, as I said, though, we're still obviously bound by our existing budget, and again, there's no adjustments contemplated. With that said, Mr. Brown, if you wanted to speak to this further in terms of highlighting your efforts here, and if there's any questions, we'll take it from there. I will just highlight that in the memo, that the chart that is included in the memo, the highlighted chart is the pay plan that we're ultimately approving or asking for approval. Everything else is kind of reference material.
Okay, so Mr. Brown, do you wish to say anything?
Sure. This is Mike Brown. Can you hear me? Okay.
Sure, yes.
Yep, they weren't working before. So no, I think in the memo, we, as Ken said, we did a fair amount of research to look at municipalities that would be similarly situated and comparable, as well as looked at towns we figured would be a feeder pool to potential candidates to look at this information. And so looking at that, came up with these ranges to make sure that we were creating ranges that meet the needs of the town, as well as offer us competitive salaries when if we go to the marketplace for one of these roles. So happy to answer any questions, but.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Brown?
Madam Chair,
Discussion? Yes, yes, Ms. Aguilar.
I have a question. Actually, have a couple questions. For Mr. Kellogg, do we use these as a cap that you can't make more than the maximum? Because currently there's 3 people who are making more than the 2016 maximum. So what is the gate, like if we're gonna go over the maximum, what do we do this for?
Well, that is precisely why I want these pay plans to be adjusted, because these should reflect where we are, where we want to be and where we are. So you're correct. While we have, through the budget process, this council has passed budgets and salary levels that in a couple of cases have grown beyond what is currently there. It's not appropriate. So I want to make sure that we are collectively living, within the ranges that we want to set. The pay plans, as I think Mr. Brown will articulate, these ranges have not been revised, I think, in over 10 years. So you can understand how that could occur.
So the 2016, that wasn't a revision, that was?
Yeah, so in 2016, in looking back at the information and what was presented to the council, so there were a couple of recommendations in there, but the ones that pertain to positions or salary ranges were really taking 2 positions and moving them from level 7 to level 8, but it wasn't progressing the salary ranges. So the salary ranges themselves didn't change. We just, the recommendation in 2016 was to take 2 positions from level 7, and from what I can see, because they were approaching the maximum, they were recommendation to move to a level 8, as opposed to the ranges themselves moving over the period of time. So based on everything that I can see, 2008 may be the last time that these ranges actually were established, and they have not moved or progressed since.
Okay, thank you. I have one more question. How did we, for the administrative assistant, how did that go lower? Why is the maximum proposed lower than the maximum current?
Yeah, so you'll see from time to time, based on market data and the salary ranges, from time to time will adjust. It didn't adjust downward that much, but from time to time you'll see some slight movement from that perspective. But the minimum has moved from that perspective. So the salary range is progressing to make the midpoint higher, but the maximum is slightly lower.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Tony Scott has a question.
Sure, Mr. Scott?
Thank you. So the evaluation of the actual salaries were not done since 2008. What's your estimate of how quickly these should be done in the future and looked at, so we kind of have a guidance and we're not 12 years out from the salary guidance in the future?
Yeah, so, and when I don't know if you said salary or salary ranges. I just want to be
range,
clear.
sorry, the range, yeah.
Yep, no, that's fine. So, the salary ranges should be looked at every year, every 2 years. I would say that, you want to make sure that you're looking at it every year. Just nothing's going to move dramatically, but you wouldn't want it to be more than at least looking at it every 2 years, just to see, kind of where things are. So it should be a regular process that happens.
Great.
My thought process is that it should probably be incorporated into the budget process.
Right.
Good.
Yeah, and the other one thing that we didn't talk about is one of the recommendations is to do away with the levels. And I think there's not enough positions here to really kind of warrant a level structure. So I think, to Ken's point, every year you'd want to look at this because it'll feed right into the budget process. And every year when you're looking at that budget, again, you want to kind of look to see where are people falling within that range from that perspective. So it's a good exercise just to do a look across the board once a year.
Good.
Okay.
The other question, one final question is, just to be clear, I'm looking at the chart that was included in the packet, the salary ranges chart graph, and there are no salaries that are currently employed that fall outside the range, either lower or higher, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Great. Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Scott?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, so
Madam Chair?
we'll do it.
Madam
Yes.
Chair,
Yep.
Go ahead, Ms. Martin.
Madam
Dee Dee
Chair.
first. Yes, Dee Dee. Yes, Ms. Martin.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kellogg, in the proposed pay plan, it appears that the economic development coordinator has been removed. Is that correct?
Dr. Kellogg, you're currently on mute.
Thank you. First one, Kelly. So, I did not catch that the first time we went through this. There currently was not, that wasn't an active position. We know we have an acting community and economic recovery coordinator, but certainly I would state that as we evaluate the potential of a permanent position in that regard, we would certainly have to at the same time add that role to the pay plan if that were to occur.
So then it's being removed presently, and you would add it if you thought it was necessary. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is Mr. Brown did not include it because it's not currently, it's not currently a permanent position. There's a temporary community and economic recovery coordinator, but as you know, that is not a permanent position. That's why it was not included. But it's certainly,
okay.
Certainly if we were to collectively evaluate that and choose to decide to fund such a position at that same time, we could certainly amend the pay plan accordingly.
So would it not make any sense that you just leave that line in there then, rather than to have to go back into the pay plan and amend it?
Well, again, I think it would depend upon the nature of the role as determined at that time. I don't want to speak for Mr. Brown. I don't know if he spent a whole lot of time looking at that role as it's on that chart as a coordinator versus what we would want, to contemplate in the future. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't know that analysis is done that we would say that's the right range at this point.
And, part of that is the fact that you would be looking at that role as it was defined at that point in time, as opposed to what that role may be defined at this point in time or in the future. And that would certainly factor into the comparison, similar to the fact that back in 2016, there was not a health director, on the pay plan. We now obviously have kind of a full-time health director, and that is currently on the plan. So I would say that, there would certainly possibly be additions to this that we would obviously, the council would have to decide on that position and the scope of that position. And then certainly based on that would go out to the market to see what that position would warrant paying. But I feel like that position would be comparing a position that existed and a job description that was outdated, and we'd want to update that job description. But again, I don't know that we're contemplating that role right now, so I would probably wait until that becomes an active role to add that to the plan. That would be my recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Mr. Kellogg, Mr. Holdsworth, the gentleman that's essentially doing the COVID stuff, he's being paid by grant. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, did you say Mr. Holdsworth?
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, we are tracking those costs as a COVID expense, which we are seeking, reimbursement and grants to recover as in the same category as all the COVID expenses. Yes.
Okay. Then one more question on the in the past, has the chief of police has not been in the non-union pay plan?
So again, that's another issue that we identified, is that again, my assumption is that the reason why it was not included at the time is because the chief has a contract. However, in the spirit of trying to put this in line with what's in the charter, it doesn't distinguish whether it's a contracted employee or not. So we decided that it was appropriate to simply include it.
Okay. Does the fact that the chief and I believe the health director, that they have separate contracts, does that have any bearing on it?
I don't believe it does. Again, I believe that the contract should comport with the pay plan.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Any other questions or discussion from anybody, council?
Madam Chair.
Yes, it's Mr. Mauer.
Jason Mauer, thank you very much, Madam Chair. First, I think that including this annually within our budget process alleviates a lot of my concerns, which is a great thing to do. My suggestion for that would to be including it not only in our binder as to any suggestion, but also from the HR presentation part to the council on the budget. I'm sure something along those lines were what the plan was, but I think that that would be my 2 cents into going forward, and that does alleviate a lot of my concerns, and that a lot of my questions tonight had to do with evolving this. The other areas of my concern, actually, one was touched upon earlier by Mr. Kapoor, and that I would like to see also as part of our budget plan the part-time version of this for our part-time and hourly employees, just to be able to make sure that we are offering competitive salaries and wages in that sense as well. I would ask that, I know obviously we don't have that information tonight and that's not part of this vote, but Mr. Selectman and Mr. Brown, if that can be something on your upcoming agendas, I would love to see that at some point during this budget season, or if not during this budget season, shortly thereafter. My one question with what we're voting on tonight is that my understanding is these are the pay plan structure is basically our guideline, and that if there were extenuating circumstances for a specific contract for a specific position, this council does have the power to go outside of this structure. Although, like I said, if we do this on an annual basis, I don't think that will be much of a concern, but I do want to make sure that that is the understanding from the selectman and from Mr. Brown as well.
Yeah, for Selectman Kellogg, yeah, I believe we have a shared understanding in that regard. And I also, yeah, I'll just reiterate what I said earlier. This was the first section of the pay plan, so to speak, that we want to update it. As a matter of fact, my feeling is that there should not be, we've kind of been evolving with like separate pay plans. I think there literally should be a single pay plan that has sections for full-time unaffiliated and part-time, and here's this group, that group, as it's kind of for everyone who's in the classified service, which is what the charter requires. So that that is what we will be endeavoring to pursue.
I agree, and thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, anyone else have questions or comments? Or I'm going to call for a roll call vote. Dee Dee Martin,
Dee Dee Martin, aye.
Jennifer Aguilar,
Jennifer Aguilar, aye.
Jason Mauer,
Jason Mauer, aye.
Jonathan Formicella,
Jonathan Formicella, aye.
Tony Scott,
Tony Scott, aye.
Sean O'Rourke,
Sean O'Rourke, aye.
Kevin Reed,
Kevin Reed, aye.
and Enid Lapellis, aye. This motion passes by a vote of 8-0. Second, public participation. I will ask Mr. Kellogg to assist me. Is Mr. Kapoor there still, or anybody else wish to have a second public participation?
Anyone wishing to speak in second public participation, please remember to unmute your microphone and please indicate your desire to speak. Madam Chair, I see no one.
Okay. So there'll be no further business. I hereby declare this meeting adjourned at 9:07 p.m. Thank you very much. See you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.